Hey, everybody. Melly here. Welcome to a semi special episode of my Hidden Homeless series. I was going to wait until later to make this episode, but given recent events that I've unfortunately been witness to and tried to, participate in, um, and just having seen where a lot of different people and sources have really gone about things wrong, I wanted to try and use that as an opportunity to share my own experiences with having done similar things, made similar mistakes in the past, etc. I've turned live chat off on here because I'm just going to live stream, and I need to stay focused on what I'm talking about. I don't need to be distracted by anything. This is not my usual content. This is strictly for my Hidden Homeless series. But anyways, so for those of you that haven't seen the previous episodes of this series, I am obviously a person of lived experience with homelessness, poverty, mental health, addictions. Pretty much you name it, I probably have lived experience with it, or first or secondhand. And I may have touched on this in previous episodes as well, but I've really come a long way in my efforts to be involved in my community. And that's been a journey by itself, and it still is a journey. I still, make mistakes sometimes, but I'm accountable to that, and I'm always happy to, correct myself and be corrected. I try and be as respectful as possible, though my passion tends to come out as emotion rather than passion sometimes still. It's something that I'm really trying to work on. But I just wanted to give this opportunity for people that are newer to the scene, so to speak, in terms of advocacy or being community involved, on how you can learn from my mistakes and the mistakes of others. I'm going to try and give some tools and tricks. I'm going to give some examples on how you can get involved more effectively rather than just, small picture. You can actually get involved in the big picture. Recently, in London, there's been a lot of conversation about funding for services in London that are dealing with the homelessness crisis. As somebody who's lived through and can tell you the aftermath of good, bad, or indifferent funding across the board, I've tried to observe rather than actually participating since I no longer live in London, but I just got to a point in the past week that I just needed to, step in and just offer my 2 cents. There's been, and I want to try and do this in a positive way. I want to try and have this series be positive and not so much be negative and, attacking anybody, etc. And I've said this in other episodes too, but I really intend on being positive in what I'm saying. I intend on being constructive rather than destructive, and I hope that comes across. I keep tabs on London City Council just like I keep tabs on, where I am, city council, municipal councils where I am, and elsewhere, even like in Guelph and Cambridge, and I like to be plugged in so I can try and relate how each city's so I can understand how each city's responding to homelessness. And I just happen to see I'm gonna name drop her, I'm sorry, but it's important for context. I happen to see Susan Stevenson had posted about she had brought forward a motion with 3 other councillors. I believe it was Susan, Sean, Jerry, and Stephen. I believe that's the motion yes. It's part of a good neighbor agreement. And I read through the motion. I read through the initial motion. It's been amended a couple times from what I understand. And it seems like that motion alone has been the source for so much misinterpretation and so much misinformation and disinformation, because it seems like people didn't read the actual motion and instead just skimmed through it, thought hey, this is what what they're intending to do, and ran with it to social media. And one interesting thing that I really find, and it's concerning, is that there's four counselors listed in that put forward this motion, but I don't see any of the other three getting subjected to some of the attacks that I've seen. And I get that being in public office, you're going to have people come at you and this and that and the other. But some of the ways people go about things, like, it's so unnecessary. And these are the same people that are the first to tell everybody else that they shouldn't be subjecting people to that kind of belittling behavior, like the hypocrisy. But I want to bring attention to one part of the motion, and it literally says, the civic administration be directed to work with London Cares on a contract for council approval that reallocates London Cares outreach and London Cares housing stability funding to provide an expansion of service to 7 days a week and longer hours at 602 Queens. That civic administration be directed to amend the Project Home Housing First contract to change the focus from high acuity individuals to graduates of London's Heart Hub and Quentin Warner House. The civic administration be directed to issue 1-year contracts with an option to renew for an additional year pending council approval. And the civic administration be directed to provide the quarterly reports submitted by all service providers to the CPSC, the Community and Protective Services. Sorry, I have to remember that not all of you have the short forms for these committees, on a quarterly basis. So let's go back to that first I. I don't know if it's I or one. I want to say one. A1. The civic administration be directed to work with London Cares on a contract for council approval that reallocates the LULA. So they're not actually reallocating the funding. They're directing city staff to literally work with London Cares on a contract. They have said what they wanted in that contract. What's not mentioned in that contract, and this is where a lot of the misinformation is coming from, is any veterans funding, which can be a separate thing. That it can be separate from overall housing stability and other things. It can be still included in their funding. It's a gray area. I get it, and I get why people have been confused and have but the one thing, and I really wish people would read motions, is that people thought that they were literally cutting funding and reallocating funding, as of Tuesday. No, that's not what's happening. What's happening is that they're directing city staff to create a contract with London Cares, reallocating funds from one thing to another. Now, does that mean that veterans funding could get cut as a result of that? Maybe. That's a possibility. But they're not reallocating the funding. They're literally directing staff to open the conversation. That is literally all that's happening. And I read that. That was how I recall it being when it first appeared on public. And people took that. And there's reports included in this agenda. And people took that and they went like this and nitpicked it and just ran with it. And we're like, oh, they're reallocating this portion of the funding, this portion of the funding. They're not reallocating any funding, which is the one thing of misinformation and disinformation that I'm so tired of hearing about, and I hope gets clarified at the meeting again today. Yeah, today at 1 p.m. is the council meeting where this all comes to. I'm reading the agenda from the meeting itself, from the CPSC meeting itself. Community and Protective Services Committee. My apologies for using the the abbreviation. But CPSC is Community and Protective Services Committee. So if I refer to that, that's what I mean. But people took this agenda, took this motion, and the reports that are included in it, or were included alongside it in posts that Susan made, and were like, oh, well, that means you're going to be... No, she's not calling for reallocation of funding right now. And she's not the only one. Her and three other counselors are asking for a conversation to happen about reallocating funding. Now, if it comes back that, veterans funding is part of it, I'm fairly certain, given, as I've said in previous posts and previous comments, that given Sean Lewis's strong connection with the Legion and strong connection with veterans, I do not think he will okay something that eliminates that funding. So what could happen is that they develop a contract and Lennon Care says, oh, well, we want veterans, we want the veterans card included. Or the city even says, hey, we still want veterans included. We just want to kind of roll back some of the other outreach apart from veterans, because they are two different sources. They are two different numbers. They are two different, amounts. They're the same thing when it comes to outreach, but they are a separate category. And they are a separate category across the spectrum of government levels. But they could come back and say, you know what? We want to keep the veterans thing because the veterans thing is working. The veterans thing is actually working. And you have previous reports about how London's dealt with homeless veterans to reinforce that, right? So you have the metrics there. So they could come back and say, you know what, we're gonna keep that veterans program funding, but we're gonna roll back some of the other funding. Again, no funding is changing hands here. No funding is being cut. No funding is being reallocated. It's just opening the conversation window. And yes, there's a deadline coming because a lot of federal funding ends on March 31st. So the conversations are going to happen, fast and furious. But people have literally taken to social media and just ran with this. And even London Cares and their supporters have done this. Please, people, learn to read motions. And please, if you're confused about what somebody's intention or what the wording means in a motion, and maybe you don't feel comfortable reaching out to the individual counselor or counselors in this case that brought forward the motion, reach out to the city clerk, reach out to the city staff, reach out to people that make up these things. Well, not make up these things, you know what I mean? Like the ones that develop these, who know the lingo, and have them be your in-between. Have them be the person that asks for clarification from these counselors and then gets back to you. Do not, and I say this as somebody who's done it. I did this so long ago. Do not take what you think this motion says and run with it. Because the motion literally says what the intent is. The intent is not to immediately reallocate funding. It is to talk about reallocation of funding. Yes. Does that mean that possibly the veterans thing would be at risk? Is it at risk now? No. But those conversations could put it at risk? Yes. But will it likely be at risk? No, because when it comes back to council, especially with Sean Lewis, there's going to be some conversations and some really tough conversations. You know what I mean? But people have literally taken this and interpreted what they think it means and ran with it. I've heard that, oh, they're cutting our funding altogether. They're reallocating our funding. They're taking funding away from this program. No, they're literally only directing staff to talk about the possibilities of reallocating funding. this is what they'd like to see, but does that mean that's what's going to happen? No, that's going to go to London Cares. London Cares is going to have the opportunity to meet with the city staff and be like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And then they'll bring back a contract before March 31st, I'm hoping, and we'll go from there. Now, bear in mind, there's 4 councillors on this motion. You know how many I've seen targeted by this misinformation and disinformation campaigns this weekend? And trust me, I get it. I've been where you guys are, where you don't agree with what the motion is, or you don't agree with the majority of the decisions that certain councillors make. But there's a way to go about it. And that's part of why I wanted to do this special episode. Because there's an effective way to get your concerns raised to even the people you're disagreeing with and oppose, without going to the tactics and levels that some people have. And you don't need, and the amount of people I've heard this weekend through trying to have discourse in some of the comments and some of the posts about, oh, well, blah, 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 she doesn't respond to me, blah, 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 blah. Okay. What, have you tried reaching out to her offline? Because, and I don't know why I have to keep repeating this, but counselors are not obligated to respond to anything on social media. Their job description includes emails and phone calls and in-person meetings. It does not include social media. Unless something in a municipal act or something therein has changed, because last I checked. And a lot of people seem to think that, oh, well, they're not responding. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, she's not responding to me. Well, let's explore that. And I have one example of one person that I've been going back and forth with, and the same. I've been respectful, like different perspective, different perspective, but I've still respected them nonetheless. And I've just gone back and forth with them, and I'd respond to their claims with, hey, here's my perspective that what you're saying here isn't actually accurate. I'm not saying that it's not valid and that it wasn't true in the past, but unfortunately right now it's not true in London. It may be true elsewhere, but it's not true in London. And this person, instead of, responding respectfully, was like, how would you know? Basically tried to say that as a person of lived experience, I don't know anything about what happens in London. And I was like, okay, I understand why you feel that way. I understand that, you may feel differently and you have experiences in other cities, but that doesn't change the fact that what you're saying is not true for London. And I'm not the only one saying this either. There's been several people that have said exactly what not only Susan said it sometimes, but sometimes some things I've said where people are like, yeah. So it's one of many valid perspectives. There's no invalid perspective when it comes to homelessness. All perspectives are welcome. All perspectives are equal. They may be inaccurate. They may be wrong. But it's finding the common ground with all that is important. But this person was just not having it. They're like, oh, I'm a former outreach worker, and frontline worker, I was like, okay. And then they kept threatening to block me and ignore me. And I'm like, okay. So you want to ask about why Susan's not responding to you or anybody, because it seems like a lot of people that they tried to interact with on social media are not responding to them. I'm like, do you ever stop and think that maybe your attitude has something to do with it? Like your approach? Maybe? Oh, well, I tried reaching out to Susan and I was respectful the first 15 times. That's literally what they said. And I was like, okay, so why did you only try and be respectful 15 times? I understand it's hard to be respectful to people sometimes. Trust me, I know. But I'm like, okay, so why would you change your approach if, was she not giving you the answer you liked, and that's why you stopped being respectful? Like, and it just seemed like the back and forth, like I was just having a conversation with them, but they didn't like, and they were asking questions and I was answering them. But because I was answering them in a similar way to what Susan had said in her answer, sorry, it happened to be coincidentally very similar to my own experience. They were like, oh, you're just echoing her. You're not actually answering my question. And I'm like, well, I'm answering your questions. You just don't like the answers to it. And I'm like, that might explain why people stop responding to you. Or people aren't responding to you because you don't like the answers that you get. And then you keep trying and trying and trying and trying. And then they just stop. Yeah. Again, this all goes back to my main point that I'm going to get to. But, and I've seen people doctoring memes with Susan in it. Like, if this isn't okay, like, flip the roles. If Susan was the one doing what these people have done, she would be in a lot of shit. As she should be if she's doing that. If she's doctoring memes and putting people's faces onto memes, or putting like pig noses or this, that, or the other onto people's faces, like if she were to do that to Josh, she'd be in so much crap. Like if any counselor were to do that, they'd be in crap. But like, that's what I'm talking about. Like these people are trying to get their concerns heard, but guess what? They're being ignored because of the way they're doing it. Like there's a way to approach people, as much as you may not respect them and as much as you may not agree with them and you may not, feel the same way they do. You may have the opposite perspective. You may have a similar perspective, but still somewhat different. That's okay. But to go to bullying lengths, which is what they are, because this is the exact same behavior that if Susan or any other counselor were to do to anybody else, you guys would be calling her a bully. Instantly. As you should. But does that mean you guys can turn around and do that to her? No! That doesn't make it okay for you guys to do. The irony and the hypocrisy here is ridiculous. So anyways, yeah, I may not have the highest opinion of Susan all the time. I may not have the highest opinion of a lot of counselors all the time. But if I see this kind of stuff, I'm going to call it out and confront it. Whether or not I am their number one fan or their number one hater. Honestly, it's like okay, if you're doctoring memes to make, a point, like, jokingly make a point, like satire, okay, I can see. But there's a line. And a lot of people have been crossing the line the past almost week. And as somebody who's observing from the outside, who's not even in the fight anymore, who's literally just fighting it from the outside, well, not really fighting it, but trying to be involved in the fight from the outside using my lived experience, when I see this is the kind of BS that people are met with for simply trying to have discussions? Like, what? And I'm going to touch on this irony just because it's so fitting. The people, and this goes with the very same people that are losing their minds over, funding's going to be cut. They're reallocating my funding. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, but these are the very same people and same agencies, right? Who think the money that went towards the police budget should be reallocated elsewhere. And strongly oppose the police budget portion of the budget, right? Because what do they say? The city, putting the money towards that is ineffective. Putting all this money towards the police budget is going to be ineffective when it comes to dealing with homelessness, etc. It's only going to further criminalize homelessness. Okay. So you guys are the first to complain about wanting to reallocate funding to other things because you see things that aren't working and want to see it put towards things that are. But yet, in the same breath, if the city turns around and asks the same thing of you, you'll lose your fucking minds. Irony. The irony is delicious. It's just my saying, but that's that's the irony, and it's an irony that I've seen more often than not. Like the very same people who will be the first to stand up and criticize the city for what they're spending their money on, don't seem to like it when the city or other people turn around and do the same thing to them. And here's the difference. In order to get your funding agencies, the city has to approve it. And what kind of case are you building yourselves when you're going off your nut over even just wanting to talk about reallocating funding? You guys are losing your minds as if you're just instantly at risk of losing that funding. You're putting the cart before the horse, right? And you're also not helping your case with wanting to be a collaborative partner with the city by every chance you get. And I hate to say this because it sounds so cruel to even say, but at the end of this, the city could literally turn around and tell you to go fly a kite. Like, you could bring the funding to them, they could deny you. They have that power. Will they use it? Probably not, because the PR for them would just be insane. But at the same time, they do have a say in what funding goes where, and especially when after March 31st, they're not going to have the additional funding that they did up until March 31st. So decisions have to be made. And I can't emphasize this enough. The city isn't doing anything without wanting to consult you first. They're not reallocating your funding without talking to you first, which means you guys don't need to be losing your fucking minds over this shit, because it's not happening yet. The conversation is going to be happening, but the funding isn't being reallocated just yet. But you guys are acting like it is. And you guys are like going to the media. Like, you guys are doing what you guys do. Like, these are just, and I keep having to go back to this. And it's going to keep happening in the future episodes of my series here. You guys are the same people that every time the city has tried to do something other than what you want them to do, you've attacked them. You've gone on smear campaigns. You've gone to the media and, slander and like undermine them in every chance you get. And yet, 9 times out of 10, you guys have eaten crow. Notice how I said 9 out of 10 times. That's because this 10th time, you guys aren't able to eat crow because the city's not able to do anything in order for you to do so. Because, and I can't emphasize this more, you guys are in control. You guys bring the plans forward for what to do with homelessness. You guys bring the solutions forward for what to do with homelessness. And right now, you guys seem all too keen on keeping everything in the core where it's oversaturated, where it's not safe for a lot of people. It works for some people. I'll keep putting that in there because I don't want to get told that, no, I understand the core helps some people. The core works for some people. But here's the thing. High acuity people, that's probably who the core works for because that's where all the services are and where all the supports are. But you know who it doesn't work for? The low acuity people. Those that just need to be away from the chaos that is the core. And no, none of these agencies seem too keen on offering them that, which is the one thing that I will constantly talk about because it's one thing that constantly needs to be discussed. Because you guys are like in charge of things, but you guys aren't doing what needs to be done for everybody. You're only doing what needs to be done for a certain portion of the population. And you're leaving the rest of them fall further through the cracks. And then you wonder why there's so many deaths on the street every year. That's not due to the city. That's due to you guys not doing something other than what you're doing. And I can't help but bring attention to the fact that when he was talking to the news media, Dan Utzhorn is wearing a get rich or die frontlining. If you're a frontline worker, getting rich should not be even a thought or an entertainment in your mind, because you're not in frontline work to get rich. Like, even if it's in jest, especially given the subject matter of funding being discussed, like, dude, doesn't help your case. But again, I respect you guys. I just don't agree with what you're doing, and I wish you would see that and understand that, instead of taking anything that the city tries to tell you that needs to be done as an attack. Like, reallocating funding is not an attack. It's literally taking funding away from what they've seen from the data you provide them that says this isn't working, and reallocating it to something that is or could be better effectively working if that service gets the funding that presently other services are getting. But you guys take this as an attack, which doesn't help anything. It's exhausting to have to keep explaining this to you guys. Like, you guys keep shooting yourselves in the foot, and then you wonder why the city is so distant from you and finds it so hard to actually collaborate with you, because you don't willingly collaborate with them. You take everything they try and get from you as an attack on your reputation, or an attack on, we're not doing, on the level of work, the level of good work you're doing, or this or that, the other. You take somebody criticizing you as an attack, instead of saying, you know what, how could I take that criticism and apply it to making things better? You guys refuse to find validity in any kind of criticism, even if it's from somebody of lived experience, and instead you dismiss it. Like, you're not helping anything. You're not solving anything by being adversarial. And you want to turn around and say, the city's being adversarial. No! The city is literally trying to have difficult conversations that collaboration requires. That proper collaboration requires. It requires tough conversations. It requires compromises on both ends. The city compromised huge by giving you guys control of how the city responds to homelessness. And you're not even willing to meet them halfway, because every time they try and ask you to meet them halfway, this is what happens. You guys go to social media. You guys go to the media. Like, nah. Like, you guys are very, very much part of the population that is going about being involved in the conversation and participation the wrong way. It's like 20 after 1, so I have to try and keep my voice down because I have neighbors that are sleeping, because these walls are not super thick. So, how could people do better? Well, if you're confused by something that you see, an emotion or an agenda, and you don't feel comfortable reaching out to city councilor or an agency or this, that, or the other, reach out to city clerks, reach out to city staffs, reach out to the city manager or the deputy city manager, or like whoever's the head of the department that deals with what you're wanting to inquire about. And many times, if even the city clerks are not clear on what the intention behind a motion is, they'll go to their counselors themselves, get the response, and then respond to you. Imagine if agencies did this. Instead of going to social media and the media and like complaining about things that aren't even actually happening, if they actually understood the proper intention behind the motion presented. Like they're losing their minds thinking that, oh, well, they're going to be reallocating funding. No, they're going to be opening a conversation about reallocation and what possibilities there are. What they like to see is included in the motion. Yes, but does that mean that's going to happen at the end of it when the conversation between the city and London Cares is done? No. Like, part of the conversation, part of a productive conversation is allowing somebody to share with what their intention of the conversation is. Even if that isn't what ends up happening, that's why conversations are a thing. But you guys are biting yourselves in the butt already by being adversarial about this. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but misunderstanding the motion as a whole. And even in part. And misrepresenting the information that Susan's tried to provide to you. And she's not the greatest at it. She'll be the first to acknowledge that. But the information in the motion itself should be enough. Because it clearly says, be directed to work with London Cares on a contract for council approval that reallocates London Cares outreach to and London Cares housing stability, insert number here, funding to provide an expansion of services to 7 days a week and longer hours at 602 Queens. So, what is their end goal? I can tell you what their end goal is. Their end goal is to provide an expansion of service to 7 days a week and longer hours at 602 Queens by reallocating funds in order to do so. Does that mean that the reallocation will come from outreach at the end of it? Likely not. Or housing stability? Likely not. In fact, given that the veterans program is part of the housing stability, that piece will probably get eliminated completely. Which means they might just keep both veterans and non-veterans housing stability. They might reallocate the outreach, which, okay. But, and this is what a lot of people seem to also misunderstand. There's also a dozen plus agencies that do outreach on a daily basis in London. Whether they get funding from the City of London or otherwise. There's outreach programs through churches. There's outreach programs through community agencies as is. Like Mission Services, CMHA. Like various agencies already, various groups and agencies already do outreach. With the same people that London Cares does outreach with. So again, and this is where the irony comes in again, is that these very same people will complain to the city that too much money is going towards something that oversaturates something and that it should instead go somewhere that isn't so oversaturated. Yet, when the city comes to them and says, hey, we want to do the same thing, oh no, everybody lose their mind. And I can't emphasize this more. These agencies are constantly blaming the city for the number of homeless deaths and the number of unhoused and the number of people sleeping rough on the street. You know why that number continues to grow? Not because of the city. It's because you guys, as the heads at the table of the whole community response and the hubs plan, refuse, given there's literally $25 million in funding literally sitting dormant waiting for you. You guys refuse to do something other than what you guys are doing. So everybody's complaining that the $25 million plus is sitting dormant, maybe less than that now, because I think they've used some of it for some of the initiatives in the core. I may be mistaken on that. Don't quote me on it. But I think I've heard this or that about it. But I think they've used portions of it. And yeah, bureaucracy. But it's sitting there waiting for you guys to do something other than what you're doing in order to access that funding. That funding is literally earmarked for things that you guys are not doing right now, but could be doing. And here's the irony. These are the same agencies that are always complaining about, oh, we don't have the funding to do this. We don't have the funding to do that. We don't have the funding to do that. Well, here's an idea. Why don't you take what that funding requires in order to be accessed, which is already standing by and being kept, and isn't, has already been approved by council, so it's already happening, and bring something forward to council that allows you access to it so that, you can actually do something about the fucking crisis. Rather than just being like, nope, what we're doing is just fine. All we're doing is just fine. We don't need to be doing anything different. And anybody that does anything different and goes above our heads to do so, we're just going to criticize and, complain about because they don't know anything. We know everything. Like, I heard, and I respect Michelle so much, but for her to try and say that all the outreach workers have 200 plus years combined lived experience, no, that's not how lived experience works. None of you have present lived experience where you guys are actually living in shelters, where you guys are actually living with the outcomes of your perfectly good working programs. You guys only see the outcomes from the outside. You guys aren't experiencing it yourselves. So you can't say you have lived experience. I'm sorry. I am so sorry, but as much as I respect you guys have lived experience as frontline workers and having seen it from a different perspective, you don't have the first-hand lived experience. You don't have living experience. Most of the outreach workers and most of the frontline workers that I've met have lived experience from 5-10 years ago and from different cities. Not relevant present lived experience or living experience. So for Michelle to claim that, oh, we have 200 some odd plus years combined lived experience. No. Because not one of you are living in shelters. Because frontline workers don't live in shelters. Frontline workers and outreach workers don't live in shelters. Some do. But not the ones that are usually complaining to the city and about the city. No, the outreach workers and the frontline workers that are, living in shelters are the ones trying to change things because they see that what's happening in the core presently is not working. But what happens when these agencies find out from these frontline and outreach workers that what they're doing isn't working and they want to see change at these agencies levels? Same thing the city gets whenever they talk about wanting to change things. If not worse. Which again goes back to the point that I'm trying to make is that these agencies are actually doing more to harm the actual problem than actually solving it. And their approach in trying to deal with it also is doing way more harm. And especially when their ideology is all about system disruption. No. That hasn't worked. And it won't work here. Because if it worked, you guys have been in charge for what, 3 years now? Wouldn't you guys have nobody sleeping rough? Wouldn't you guys have all the options available that would be working and getting people actually off the street? Where you wouldn't have to depend on the city for funding, where you wouldn't have to keep expanding services? Well, you'd still have to expand services maybe, but maybe if you brought more housing online or more options outside of the core, yeah, there's $25 million sitting there waiting to be used. Wonder why you guys aren't utilizing it yet. Oh, right, because you guys are probably more comfortable with what you think is working and not wanting to do something different, which we see every time the city tries to do something different that is away from the core, don't we? Because you rally all your supporters, like you have in the past week over this, and you rally them to, oh, the city's people are gonna die, people are gonna die, people are gonna die. There will be no more deaths on the count of what the city's trying to do than there isn't already on your guys' hands for what you're not doing. Yeah, you guys are doing good work. I'm not going to disagree with that. Never will, never have. You guys are doing good work. But there's more that you guys could be doing too. The same people that are always saying the city could be doing better, well, you guys could be doing better too. But we don't see that effort, do we? No, you guys just continue complaining about funding. And then you guys complain to the city because the city's not doing anything. Well, the city can't do anything because you guys are the ones in charge. If you guys wanted the city to do something so bad, you shouldn't have had the hunger strike and demanded control. But feel free to hand the control back over at any point in time. Because ironically, the city was actually starting to turn a page on getting things done and actually accomplishing something before you guys stepped in and said, nope, we're going to take over because we know better. 3 years later, and there's more people sleeping rough than there was when you guys started the hunger strike. Interesting how that works, huh? But hey, what do I know? I just look at numbers. And I just, happen to see an influx of people that have become unhoused in the past 2 years since you guys have had control over the response. I've seen people die because they aren't getting helped in the way they need because you guys refuse to do something other than what you guys are doing. You guys refuse to offer alternatives to people that have asked for it countless times. And then when the city offers that alternative, you complain about, oh, well, nobody that's unhoused that we've talked to wants any of what the city's trying to do. Yeah, that's bullshit. First-hand experience of that myself, as well as first-hand experience of the fact that these agencies seek to intimidate people that are unhoused, that want different than what they're offering and demand different than what they're offering. They intimidate them into silence. They intimidate them into believing that nobody cares about what they have to say, including the city and other higher levels of government. Oh yeah, these agencies are not the saints that people want to keep presenting them as. So as much as they do good work, there's a lot of not so good work that they do that kind of works against their whole goal that doesn't get reported because, well, agencies omit that from reports intentionally, sweep it under the rug, and confidentiality is the thing. And because they intimidate people that are already vulnerable into submission, pretty much into staying silent, you don't hear very often. But oh yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Now, how could the agencies be doing better? Well, can start by, actually doing what the majority of your clients ask for rather than only catering to high acuity clients. Taking what your clients say seriously when they bring concerns to you might be a good start. If your clients say, hey, I want services and supports outside of the core, maybe you should bring plans forward to accomplish that. Might be a good start. But major good starting point, stop attacking the city every time you turn around. Might be a good start. Criticize the city. Again, which is the point of this entire video. There are good and bad ways to go about it. You can criticize and actually have a stronger case for that criticism if you approach it respectfully, if you approach it properly informed. And by properly informed, I mean by more than just your own ideology, narrative, and agenda. Because if you actually collect all of the concerns that your clients that are unhoused bring you, and mention the fact that people want to be away from the core, that people want distance from the core, from the people that victimize them in the core, that they're forced to be around because, oh, right, you guys refuse to offer the supports and services anywhere else but the core because it's working so well. House of Hope is proof that it's not. As if you need a more recent example of what's not working in the core. Heart Hub, proof it's not working. I've already seen and heard how ineffective that Heart Hub is. It pains me to say that because I had so much hope for it, which immediately was dashed when it was going to be located in the Center of Hope, which is a legalized drug den. And I want to address something that I've seen Councillor Frank speak about or say in a recent meeting or a recent article. See, Susan and others had used drug dens. And Councillor Frank had said, oh, well, that's, she had basically tried to dismiss it as, valid or, truth. Well, sorry to tell you, Councillor Frank, but it is the truth. Salvation Army is a legalized drug den. Center of Hope is a legalized drug den. And putting the Heart Hub in there is not going to help anything. Because, and this is exactly why the core isn't working for a lot of people. If you're going to take people that are trying to get sober and clean and stick them in the middle of a place where open drug use is a thing and nothing's done about it except, lip service and sending people on walks for an hour, guess what? Do you know how easy it is to access drugs at the Center of Hope? In common rooms, in the cafeteria, in the courtyard, in front of the Center of Hope, around the Center of Hope, anywhere, stairwells, elevators, common floors, or even just the foyers of each floor. You also get people going to people's private rooms. Like, it astounds me how little council knows about how things operate at that place. But again, because of confidentiality, they don't hear about it. Even though Kevin Dickens at the city, love you, Kevin, respect you. I should retract that. I don't love him. I respect him. I just don't want to get misconstrued. Kevin knows it's been an issue. Kevin knows it's been an issue since before I even stayed there. And what caused it to be what it is today? It being low barrier. Because I stayed there 20 years. I know I'm going off on tangents, but it'll make sense in the end of it. I stayed there 20 years ago when I was a youth. It actually had zero tolerance. It actually had rules against paraphernalia. And back then, harm reduction was still a thing, but abstinence was a major part of it, which means if you wanted to use, you went outside. And it wasn't just outside out front. No, you had to go off property. Now, do those rules exist? No. Zero tolerance? The amount of times I've seen security walk out of there with hedge clippers from people's rooms that they've carried in because they don't get searched by security when they come in. The only time I got searched was when I got there initially. And that seems to be the trend for everybody, which means people go in and out of there with drugs all the time on their person. But are they searched? No. Interesting, huh? But oh no, putting the Heart Hub in the middle of a legalized drug den, which is what it is, Counselor Frank. Sorry to tell you. I know you have your lovely Cheryl Ruth, friend of yours, who works at the food bank there, or did. Not sure if she still works there. And me and Cheryl have had disagreements about this also. Doesn't dismiss the fact that what I've seen is true and what I've seen is accurate because, oh, right, you guys are only there 9 to 5. We're there 24/7 on holidays and on days where there's no staff anywhere to be found, like on the 6th floor where the women's floor is, where there's one staff if you're lucky. But again, we'll never see financials from the Salvation Army because they're audit proof. But I digress. But oh yeah, I'm looking forward to the quarterly report about the hubs, or the Heart Hub. And yeah. Though I have to say, A2 be directed to amend the Project Home Housing First contract to change the focus from high acuity individuals to graduates of London's Heart Hub and Quentin Warner House. You know, sounds awfully familiar. It sounds like that's what they were already doing, but I think they might have changed something in the past couple of years, because I know when I was at the Salvation Army, they were still trying to recruit people that graduated from Quentin Warner and other things. But I love that. I love that they're specifically focusing on, people that actually, want to get away from the core. But I'm concerned with Quentin Warner and the Heart Hub being so close. Like, I see Quentin Warner graduating students, but that number could be so much higher if that place was located anywhere else but the core. Like, if they were located where the crisis center is, not that I want to get rid of the crisis center, because I love the crisis center, but you know what I mean? Like, have these things located outside the core. You might actually have ongoing metrics that prove success, which would help your funding cases in the future. But again, these agencies don't even want to have that conversation, even with people who are of lived experience or unhoused presently, who are begging for opportunities outside of the core. And of course, these agencies will dismiss when the city says, oh, well, people have privacy and safety concerns in the core. Oh, well, they only have those concerns because they were, surrounded by public and media and city officials. No, people have safety and health and security concerns in the core because of the people, the other unhoused people that are there, that are contributing to those issues, because your agencies aren't holding them properly accountable for their actions. But that's the city's fault, right? No, that's y'all's. And it has nothing to do with lack of funding. It has everything to do with your ideologies not matching up with what actually needs to be done, and instead only matching up with what you think needs to be done, or what a certain group of unhoused people think needs to be done. Instead of taking it from all perspectives, you take it from selective ones. Like I keep saying in this series, I don't expect to be the all be all voice here. I only expect to be one of many. So before people try and tell me otherwise, or tell me I'm power tripping or bullying or this, that, or the other, no, I'm just sharing my experience to be part of the conversation, not to be the end all be all. I'm sharing my experience, my advice, my encouragements, and that's it. It may oppose other people's. It may directly oppose other people's. It's no fault of my own, except I unfortunately don't have the same experiences that would allow me to have the same perspectives as other people. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you're human. Everybody's got unique experiences. Not everybody has the same exact experiences, which is why the solutions that are presently available in London, need to be expanded. Because right now, it's only set on one group and one portion of the unhoused population instead of the spectrum. And many people that are unhoused want to be outside the core. They want that's where they want the heart hub to be. That's where they want the supports to be. That's where they want their wraparound support and supportive housing to be. Is outside of the fucking core. And again, these agencies have $25 million in funding standing by, waiting for them to actually put an idea like that forward. Instead of having the city have to use strong mayor powers in order to have an alternative. Like, anyways. So as I was saying, how can these agencies do better? Well, stop being adversarial. And even if you disagree with what the city has to say, don't run to the media and fucking shame them and, invalidate what they say. Because, like it or not, they also have a valid perspective, even if it's different from yours. It's no less valid, just like mine, just like other people's. To come at them adversarially every time they try something that you're not involved in, you're not consulted about, and this, that, and the other. And here's the biggest irony. Dan and Michelle both bitched and whined and complained to the media about not being consulted about the trailers thing years ago. Meanwhile, what does this motion say? To work with London Cares on a contract, which means they'll probably be talking to Dan and Michelle and other people that collaborate with London Cares, or London Cares will be consulting them. Like, you guys want to be consulted? Here's your opportunity. But you guys can't even see that because you guys are too busy assuming the worst. Like, oh my God. So, number one, don't be adversarial every time the city turns around and tries to do something that you may not agree with, or you may not like, or you may not completely understand. Just like you don't always do things that people understand. But people give you the respect in coming to you to talk to you about it, don't they? And if they don't, okay. And there's people that need to do better at the city level with that, and I get that. But stop being adversarial. Stop being anti-city. Like, the city is not what it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the city didn't care as much. They were doing very little. They were doing the status quo. Up until the trailers, they were doing the status quo. The first year of the trailers was even the status quo. Because it was all the same services in the same area. And it wasn't until the next year that they tried to do something different. And you guys cut them off at the knees. And why? Because you didn't like what they were doing. You didn't like the decisions they were making. That doesn't mean you freaking cut them off at the knees. Would you like them doing that to you? No. Which is the ironic part, because y'all are complaining right now thinking that the city's cutting you off at the knees when they're actually not. Which, again, goes back to my point. Learn how to read and understand motions. Everybody needs to do better at that. Like, these advocates are nothing but armchair advocates. They aren't at City Hall on a regular basis. They aren't in regular communication with the city. And if they are, clearly they got more work to do. Like, stop being adversarial. Stop treating your own clients like shit. Might be a good start. Stop beating your clients down when they're already down. Start talking about more outcomes than just the positive ones. Start talking about the concerns your unhoused clients actually have, not just the ones that you align with. And I say that because the city actually listened to unhoused people and put the trailers at golf courses to be away from the core. And what happened? Every social service agency in the city. Oh, we don't know who the city's talking to, but every unhoused person we've talked to is saying, no. Let me give you 3 big things and 3 major groups of people that deserve options and supports and services that are outside the core. Women in general. Sex and human trafficking victims. And sex workers. And people that are actually trying to get and stay sober and stabilized. Because, and I know this is going to be a really long video, but it needs to be said. I've said it already, but nobody seems to grasp the concept. Not everybody in the downtown core and not everybody that's unhoused is super happy, positive. A lot of the reason why people remain stuck in homelessness and chronic homelessness is because people around them intimidate them or keep them from rising above. Or they're ostracized. They even try and do something better. That's not okay. Like, there are people where the core works for, but a majority of those are the ones contributing to the problems in the core. That's why it works for them. Because they're not being held accountable. They're not being, moved anywhere else. They're being allowed to do whatever they want, whenever they want, to whomever they want. And these agencies that claim to care about them are not holding them accountable whatsoever. No, instead it's all society's fault. It's the city's fault. It's everybody else's fault. Look at the arson at the Ark. Sarah Campbell basically boldly said in local media that, the person was trying to send a message to the city because they were angry about the lack of response that the city is having. No, they committed arson because they committed arson. That was a choice they made, regardless of why. They committed a crime. There is no justification for it. That isn't the city's fault. They chose to commit a crime. Regardless of how severely mentally ill or severely addicted somebody is, there's still choices and decisions. And they still come with consequences, as they should. But that doesn't exist right now in the way the system works in London. There is no consequences. Nobody's turned away from shelters. And if they are, it's not for long. And if they are, these outreach agencies are right there to pick them up and enable them to continue doing what they're doing that got them turned away from the shelters in the first place. Yes, I know that there's some people that are severely mentally ill and severely addicted and don't have the social skills to understand what they're doing wrong. But that's where these agencies need to be coming in and saying, you know what, we need to teach you this. We need to, guide you through this so that it stops happening. But these agencies, again, don't want to do that. They'd rather just, whatever. It's their circumstances to blame. Blah, 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 blah. That doesn't mean you can't teach them personal responsibility, basic respect, etc. Like, again, these agencies are more of the problem than they realize or are willing to admit. And I've seen this so many times in the past 20 years. I've seen it at Sanctuary several times. Hell, I've been victimized by people at Sanctuary London, and because I spoke up about it and wouldn't shut up about it, I was the one that was told I was the threat to Sanctuary, and I was the one that was told to leave for a month. But would they do that to the actual person that victimized me? No. They coddled that person. Wasn't until this person was moved away by force because they burned enough bridges with people that they had no other choice. And Sanctuary could have stepped in and said, hey, it could have prevented that. But no, they just enabled them to do whatever they wanted. And then when something bad happens, oh, we'll just deal with it. Various women from youth groups across North America that converge on London for serve or other walkabout reasons get victimized by this person and staff is notified. Oh, no big deal. We'll just do lip service. Go ahead. Tell me I'm wrong. When I asked for consequences, like being asked to leave the community for 30 days, to happen to this person who had rightfully so warranted that. Because I'm sorry, if you're going to victimize a community, you should not be a member of it. And or you should have some restrictions. Like, you should be having to go elsewhere. Where elsewhere? Well, nobody seemed to care where I went for 30 days. People just assumed I had other places to be. Sure, but I lost out on spending time with my friends and people that I actually cared about, all because Sanctuary London's board got pissed off because I wouldn't shut up about wanting consequences for people that legitimately warrant them. And if you know, you know. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's at least 2 or 3 posts about it on my WordPress somewhere. Oh, that's not even the worst part. After that, he goes and victimizes somebody, a family member or a friend of a girlfriend of mine. Like, what do these agencies teach their clients? Nothing. Oh, it's hard to get across to these people. Well, yeah, but does that mean you don't try and keep trying? Oh, we keep trying we just love them through it. No, you actually have to, teach them something. Don't just let them walk all over you. Like, grow some backbones, people, for fuck's sakes. Like, oh, we don't want anybody to be turned away. Oh, we don't want anybody to be restricted. Even if they warrant it by their own behavior. Like, people need to realize that just because you're unhoused doesn't mean you're exempt from responsibility for your actions and choices. And that goes for severely mentally ill, severely addicted, severely anything. Like, have I never been held responsible for my actions? No, I've been held responsible for things I didn't even do. Like asking me to leave Sanctuary London for a month because, oh, you're a threat to our community. How? Oh, I'm more of a threat than somebody that's sexually harassed and sexually assaulted various women and various members of the Two-Spirit LGBTQIA plus community in that community, in the Sanctuary London community. I'm more of a threat by speaking up about it. Okay. But that's the kind of tactics these agencies use against their own clients who don't toe the line. But did I do it out of disrespect? Nope. I did it because I respected Sanctuary London, because I respected Gil Cleland. Yeah, I'm going to name drop them. Because it's not the first time I've talked about this publicly. And it won't be the last, I'm sure. Oh, and Steve Cassidy, the board chair at the time. Hi, Steve. Because I can almost guarantee somebody's going to send this to most of the people that I name drop. Oh, and by the way, hi, Abe. Hi, Dan. Hi, Michelle. Great job you guys are doing on combating homelessness. What was it that you guys said during the hunger strike? That but we want controls because we can do a better job. Well, you guys are doing such a great job because situation hasn't gotten worse or anything, right? But again, they're more the problem than they seem to realize or are willing to be accountable for. But they're the first to ask the city to be accountable for things, as they should. Not disagreeing with that. But if you're going to ask for other people to be accountable, kind of helps to be a good example of accountability yourself. Speaking from experience. Because there's been times where I haven't been accountable for a lot of things, but now I'll be accountable for shit I didn't even do. I apologize for apologizing. But anyways, where are we? I think we're at hour 15. Okay. So how can agencies do better? Well, I've listed a bunch of ways they could. Will they take my input? Probably not. They haven't so far, and I'm not the only one that's had the same input, so. And I really wish that I had more positive experiences with these places. I really wish I did, but I don't have that privilege. I unfortunately only have the unfortunate privilege of having negative ones. But I also know of people that have had positive ones. I also know of people that have had come see, come saw ones. I know people that have had good and bad. But I also know a lot of the people that have had the bad experiences. Their experiences don't get talked about very often by these agencies because they don't tend to like to talk about the kind of concerns and kind of things that actually happen that aren't so good, that they have a major role in and yet don't seem too keen on, being open and transparent about. Like, I've been blocked by most of the staff from Sanctuary London because I kept speaking up publicly about what was going on there. Like, Gil Cleland and I haven't spoken in years. Probably has me blocked still. Is what it is. Oh, and then when he got hired on at Wish, I was concerned that I think it was Wish. Yeah. I was concerned that the same mentality he had at Sanctuary London would carry over, which wasn't good for the community. Like, we need healthy communities, not communities where enabling sexual deviance is a regular thing. Like, and here's the worst part. These agencies are the first to tell you that if you need something done, go the legal route. Well, these are the same people that are complaining about the cops all the time. Cops criminalize homelessness, but you're more than willing to have somebody do just that because you'd rather not do something about it instead and spare somebody the criminal record. Weird and ironic, isn't it? Like, I was encouraged, go to the police about a person that was sexually harassing women and members of the Two-Spirit LGBTQIA plus community at Sanctuary. Go to the police. With what evidence? There's no physical evidence. I can't physically prove he assaulted me because there's not cameras anywhere. Like, again, these agencies are more of the problem of their own problem that they're claiming to try and solve than they are willing to acknowledge, because their ideologies won't let it. Their ideology is all about system disruption and being against oppression, and well, when you guys are the ones oppressing your own clients, then who's going to fight you? You're not so quick to fight when you're the ones oppressing your clients. And don't tell me you don't. Even unintentionally, you do. But again, your ideologies won't allow you to realize that or do anything about it. But then you wonder why people don't want to fund you or find it hard to continue your funding. Well, what are you guys doing? Are they contributing more to the problem that you're claiming to try and solve by enabling the same things that don't work to continue not working and making the problem worse instead of, I don't know, doing something different that might actually, I don't know, do something productive that actually might help the situation rather than worsening it, and keeping everybody coddled in the same area doesn't work. But you guys don't even want to try and do something different because it's too much work. But yet the city can seem to do it no problem. What does that say? But anyways, yeah, not being adversarial towards the city or your own clients that have less than stellar experiences with you would be a good start. Not running to the media every time the city wants to do something that you don't approve of and slamming them in the media based on only the fact that you don't like or agree with what they're doing, to then turn around and undermine them and why they're doing it and the reasons why they're doing it doesn't help. It just makes things worse. You could try, actually willingly collaborating with the city on things rather than being adversarial every time you turn around and blaming the city for everything, and maybe take equal accountability. Sure, city's responsible, but so are you guys. And it's not due to lack of funding either. No, some of your mandates and policies and ideologies need a good tweak towards actually, adapting to the actual needs of the unhoused population, not just the unhoused population that you think. Yeah. Spectrum of options for a spectrum of an issue. One size fits all doesn't work. One option for everybody doesn't work. Keeping everybody in the core doesn't work. It works for some, but not for all. What is that saying from Star Trek? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few? Well, it'd be great if these agencies actually, took that and ran with it and actually did something that benefited the many as opposed to just the few. But they'll sit back and still keep taking the city's funding because they're in charge of the response. So until such time as somehow that changes, they're just going to continue doing what they're doing because, who cares if what they're doing isn't actually working as much as they think it is? It's actually doing the opposite, but do they want to acknowledge what isn't working? Clearly not. They don't even want to talk about it. Oh no, they're going to cut our funding. Well, don't you think that they should be funding things that, make sense? The same things that you're constantly telling them to do, like, oh, don't fund the police budget. You need to be funding this because it makes sense. Well, reallocating your funding to other parts of your services makes sense to them and many others, but can't tell you that, right? Again, the irony. Now, what can non-agency people do? Well, stop drinking the Kool-Aid of the agencies, for one. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, contrary to what it may come out as. Agencies shouldn't be people's only sources for information. Because confidentiality may be a thing, but unhoused people are always happy to talk to people. The amount of people when I was at the Salvation Army who actually reached out to city council, who before they knew that was an option, hadn't, because they'd only gone to the staff at Sally with their concerns, and the staff had told them, oh, we'll take it to the appropriate people. They didn't. Again, these agencies think they're doing so much good work for their clients, but they're doing so much less than what they could be. They're shortchanging their clients, quite frankly. Like, this is the bare minimum. They could be doing so much more, and they literally have $25 million sitting there, waiting for them to do more. All they got to do is say, hey, we need something that's outside the core, that addresses some of the needs of a majority of our clients, that isn't in the core. Ding, ding, ding. But what can non-agency people do? Back to my point. What can they do? Well, like I said, don't take what you see on social media as the end-all be-all. And that means from agencies, from city council, from any source. Because media, which is social media, just like news media, is only meant to give you one portion of the picture. In order to get the full picture, you need to go to all sources. And not just ones you agree with, not just ones that align with your own perspectives or narratives, and especially ones that challenge that. Oh, how much benefit that is brought to me to have that opportunity in my past, when I used to be single-minded about it. Nobody could even talk to me about anything else. Unless they agreed with me, forget it. Wasn't until somebody that had a different perspective dared to have a conversation with me that challenged that. But they didn't challenge it out of malice or disrespect. They challenged me out of respect, because they wanted me to have a different source on top of my own. A different perspective other than my own. Because in order for us to actually combat this, we need the spectrum of perspectives involved. Not just agencies, not just the media, not just city, not just those three. We need the spectrum. That means good, bad, or indifferent experiences and perspectives. And more importantly than that, we need respect for each of those. Whether we agree strongly or disagree strongly, every voice matters in the discussion, because if we don't have every voice, we can't accomplish everything. Because if we only have certain voices, we're missing out on some of the problems, or even some of the things that could also work. Like, if we don't include NIMBY voices, there's some legitimate concerns behind people with that meet the NIMBYism, criteria. Like, not in my backyard. Sorry, I keep using acronyms. Not in my backyard. NIMBY, not in my backyard. And NIMBYism is just that. But there's people that, and I've seen this in my own experience, they're not NIMBY because they don't like perfect example. I've met so many people who are NIMBY, but not because they don't like homeless people, or they don't want homeless people in their neighborhood or in their community. They actually approach it from a different sort of care and concern, because they want these people going somewhere where they're going to get the care they need, where they get the support they need, where they get, truly an opportunity. Because some people approach it with NIMBYism because, and I hate to give anybody that has the NIMBYism perspective any kind of credit, but it's important. Like, I know people in smaller communities that have severe NIMBYism, not in Mitchell, but I've seen it in my travels over the past 20 years. People in smaller communities don't want homeless people in their community because they don't have the resources, and they feel like that's unfair to the unhoused people, especially those that are severely mentally ill or severely addicted. So I've met a lot of negative NIMBYisms, like a lot of people that just are blatantly ignorant of the needs and just don't want homeless people around, period. And I don't mean to give the devil its due when it comes to NIMBYism, but I've also heard some very interesting perspectives when it comes to NIMBYism. And a good way of looking at it is how Josh used his strong mayor powers to bring in the modular homes. And I have an entire episode or two about this. When Josh first presented that, people were like, oh, that just means he doesn't want homeless people in the city or in the core or this, that, or the other. Out of sight, out of mind, a lot of people were saying. But here's the thing, though. A lot of unhoused people actually have severe NIMBYism for themselves. And it's not for the reasons people think. Like, as much as people don't want unhoused people around them, a lot of unhoused people don't want to be around society, not because they're afraid of being judged, but because a lot of them don't have the capacity due to whatever reason, including agencies not supporting them properly, to act differently than they do. And so when opportunities for supports outside of the core or in other cities come along, unhoused people jump at it, you know? And I know that's a problem because people get shipped to London, get shipped from London, get into this, that, and the other. I get that's an issue, and that's a very valid issue, and that needs to stop. But at the same time, I can kind of see why. Even though London's already stretched for resources, it's done out of care a lot of the time because there's not the equal amount of resources across municipalities. Like I said, not justifying it or saying it should happen, but it does. But in terms of NIMBYism, when Josh was like, oh, I'm going to use my strong mayor powers and develop modular homes at the edge of the city, away from the core, services are still going to be available, transportation is going to be available, aside from London Transit. That was a big thing that kept making me laugh, is that people were like, oh, they're going to expect homeless people to depend on the crap LTC service. I'm like, no. I knew that was not going to be a thing. Why? Because look at the trailers. People thought the same thing. Guess what? That was inaccurate because transportation was provided for people and it wasn't London Transit. But no, like, there's reasons why people want to be outside of the core or outside of a community or outside of a neighborhood. And that can work both ways. Like, there's some people that want people at the edges of the city so that, they're away from the... It's a very complex thing to talk about because there's people that, and I don't want to group everybody that has NIMBYism into one. I want to separate the fact that there's NIMBY people that intentionally just don't want homeless people around because they don't. And then there's people that actually do it out of a weird and odd way of care and concern for the person given the present circumstances. Like, there's so many people that live in the core that get the negative NIMBY label to them, when in reality they just want better for these unhoused people, and better means locating things outside of the core and maybe at the edges of the city. Not necessarily at the literal edges of the city, just unfortunately sometimes happens that way. But yeah, that's kind of NIMBYism that we need, is the positive NIMBYism. Like, yes, locate things outside the core, located in other areas in the city, not just the core. But then you get the other side of the coin when the city tries to do that, such as with the hubs plan, when they tried to have the one hub located at the old at an inn on Fanshawe Park Road. course, this is before people realized that CMHA didn't do their homework properly. By the way, still haven't heard how that whole thing is. I thought they were coming out with an alternative. Apparently not, unless the hub is the alternative. But a lot of, and this goes back to my main point that I'm trying to make. The people that reached out to the city when that was announced came at it from the negative NIMBYism, where they didn't want people, bringing down their home values or, interfering with their reasonable enjoyment or, being a nuisance in their neighborhood. Even though from the Hubs program itself, it was made clear that that wouldn't be a problem as much. And to prove that, you don't really hear anything about problems at the youth hub or the Aboriginal hub. So just saying. But my point is that a lot of the people that were reaching out and trying to be involved in that were not informed on the whole situation. And that's because they didn't follow or understand or, bother to, get informed. And so through that process, you had a lot of copy and paste letters about, oh, we can't have no. Like it was all like, no, don't have them here. No, don't have them here. No, don't have them here. And it was like the same email, slightly omitted, sent by several different people. And there was 150, I think. And a lot of them are dickheads. And goes back to my point, and that's not an effective way to get your concerns raised and your answers to your questions and this, that, and the other. But yeah, there, like it or not, there is a positive NIMBYism and there's a negative NIMBYism. And the positive NIMBYism is sometimes held by unhoused people themselves, which is really weird. Which really makes it difficult when these agencies try and pull the NIMBYism card in a negative sense, because the city does something NIMBY-wise, well, or it could be coined as NIMBY-wise, but in a positive sense because of feedback they've gotten from unhoused people. Like people that want to be separated from the core because they want to be at the modular homes or they wanted to be at the trailers to be able to get proper opportunity to stabilize because they were away from the people and the influences that were keeping them stuck in homelessness and addiction and severe mental health. Like a lot of those people that went through the trailers are still housed today. I know a good portion of them that went through that initiative that are still housed. Some of them, unfortunately fell back off, which is a possibility with everything. But the comparative success rate between that and what's happening now in the core is way different. Which is probably what inspired Josh to bring forward the modular homes using strong mayor powers, because I think that was and I still haven't gotten confirmation. I should really follow my own advice and reach out to Josh and ask for confirmation. But it seems to me that the trailer's success inspired the modular homes project because it's so similar. Like the way it's set up, the way it's run, it's very similar. And a lot of people were opposed to it, but only because the agencies came up opposed to it, using the same nonsense that they used back in the trailers day, which is hilariously ironic. Hence why I'm laughing. And even back in the trailers, these agencies went to the media and said people will die if they go ahead. Meanwhile, the only people that died were the ones still in the core. And I only say that because firsthand lived experience. You know how many friends I lost that who I know died that went through the trailers program? You know how many people that I knew back then that were stuck in the car and died? Quite a number. Again, people need to stop considering social service agencies as the end all be all source, especially when these agencies seem to be like putting the cart before the horse, where they're losing their minds on things before they actually understand the gravity of the situation. And the biggest irony about the modular homes is that no, they weren't involved in it. They had Mayor Morgan had a different company that had success in previous initiatives in other cities that were very similar to the modular homes project, were trauma informed trained, were just as well trained as social service agencies were, but because it wasn't them involved, the agencies lost their minds. Or sorry, it wasn't necessarily the agencies. It was Abe Woodshorn and who, trumpeted the, oh, it's NIMBYism. Sorry, Abe, I can't. I respect you, but dude. And this is why I say that there are better ways to go about getting your concerns heard than that. You may not be directly involved in things, but that doesn't mean you can't get better informed on how things actually work. And by that, I mean, if you're curious about the program or you have concerns about the program, do one thing. Talk to city staff, talk to the city clerks, talk to MPs, talk to MPPs, talk to unbiased sources that have no reason to lie to you, that have to tell you the truth, that have to be accountable to you, that can't mislead you or any way, shape, or form before you go and run to the media or social media and spread your interpretation of what's happening. Why does that sound like a trend these agencies have been doing for years? Oh, right, because it is. Then they wonder why nothing's being done. Nothing's changing. And then people in the community as a whole wonder why nothing's changing. Well, hate to tell you, but that goes to my next point. So what can people do to be involved in making changes that actually, create progress? Well, not following the agency's lead is a good start. I would first encourage you to thoroughly, independently, and from various sources, fact check everything that you're concerned about. What I mean by that is, say you see a motion that you are concerned about. Take that motion, save it, because most of the time you can have it as a PDF. Send it to city clerk, MP, MPPs, like anybody that wouldn't be a biased source that can give you the information you're seeking. Like city clerks, they are so knowledgeable. My goodness. Former city clerk Kathy, oh, I miss her. me and her didn't talk very often, but when we did, it was just she was such a fountain of information, and I have no doubt that the present clerks are the same way, because a lot of the same clerks were there when she was there. So, but reach out to the city clerks, if anything, because the city clerks can literally go through the motion with you piece by piece by piece and explain the lingo, and if they don't even understand the motion or understand the intentions, or if you're asking, hey, what is this councilor's intention, they can reach out to them. I would then, after you get that information back, if you still have the same concerns and you say want to have a delegation at the committee that it's being brought to, you can't have a delegation at City Council in London right now, at least. I don't know if that's municipal act that can be changed or just a city directive, but pretty sure it's a city. I'm pretty sure it's a municipal act thing. Might be a city directive too. Bureaucracy. But I would suggest requesting a delegation. Now, a smart thing to do, like, I know I think council, you can submit or if you want to have a letter sent to council to be included on the agenda, usually it's like 9 a.m. the day before. Sometimes it's 9 a.m. the day of. Good idea is to stay on top of things as much as possible and get that letter in as soon as possible. Trying to aim for the Friday before, or the week before the meeting. That way it gives plenty of time for the clerks to get your communication and, and same with delegation requests for committees. Put the request in long before, like, as soon as you see something that you want to have a delegation about, and you have the conversation with the sources you need to, request the delegation. Usually you're only given 5 minutes. Sometimes you can ask for an extension. During the delegation, you can ask for an extension. I don't know if you, I've never asked for delegation and asked for an extension in that request for a delegation. So I don't know if that's a possibility. I think it is, might be. Don't quote me on it. It's probably in the municipal act somewhere or in the city directive somewhere. You can also ask the city clerks about that, because if anybody's going to know about delegations, it's going to be city clerks. And talk to city staff too. Like, departments that are in charge of the specific thing that you're wanting to learn more about, their job is to inform you. Because the overall goal of like city staff and city clerks and city council as a whole is to get people engaged. They want people engaged. They want people involved. They don't want to just be sitting there and just be them talking to each other for like 3-4 hours or more. Let alone a marathon meeting. Oh my goodness. I'm hoping the one today isn't a marathon meeting. But no, I would suggest just fact checking. Consider all sources, not just ones you agree with, not just like trying to aim for unbiased sources. Like, go to city source, like city manager sources, because they could actually get in trouble for misleading people. City managers can actually, their part of their job is to inform people properly, because that's part of their job when they're talking to other level government too. So, yeah, definitely do that. Again, reach out to MPs and MPPs, because they might have something that they can look at, provincially or federally. And I get you're probably going to get a lot of pass the buck when you do this. You're going to get like a lot of, oh, this is a city thing. Oh, this is a provincial thing. Oh, this is a federal thing. Try and get a collaborative effort going on something. Like, okay, so if you approach city council and say, and councilor or city staff or city clerk says that's a provincial thing. Okay, so you need to get provincial to do something before municipal can do something. So keep that line of communication between the two open, so that if you do get a result from provincial, you can then take it to municipal if they don't already do it themselves, because most of the MPPs in London especially are really good at that. MPs too. But again, do not fight the urge to believe everything you see on social media, because, as I said, social media and news media are meant to be only one side of the story and only one piece of the story. It doesn't give you the whole picture, which is a lot of where the recent confusion and misunderstanding and misinterpretation and miscommunications happened with the motion that I was discussing earlier. Again, just read all the paperwork that you can, follow the paper trail, follow the money trail, follow, like, just fact check everything and go as high as you need to. Go to ministries, go to like Ministry of Housing, go to Ministry of Social Services, I think there are different ministries now, but federally and provincially, there's different ministries that you'll need to look into federally and provincially, but go as high as you can to fact check. Don't just depend on city sources. Like, go to other sources too. It's a lot of work. I get that. It is a lot of work and it's a lot to ask of people. But the benefits of doing all that is that anything that you want to try and say will have some validity behind it because it'll have facts behind it rather than just some people's interpretation of what they think are facts, which is important. I've been on the wrong side of that a few times, on both ends. Both sides, I should say. Not both ends. Sounds kind of, yeah. But no, I would recommend definitely going don't take what I'm saying as not to involve sources like social service agencies. Definitely involve them still, but be very, 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 very careful, because a lot of agencies, while a lot of agencies don't have a specific narrative or agenda, a lot of them do. So you really got to be cautious about that. And I say that only because I've been there. I have good, bad, and indifferent experiences with a wide variety of agencies. Some that, did have hidden agendas and I didn't realize till later. Some that were a little bit more upfront about it. And some that just were indifferent to me. And be very cautious around agencies that try and argue your perspective with you. And there is a difference between disagreeing and arguing. If they try and attack you because something you say is opposite of what their perspective is or opposite of what they're trying to do, be very cautious around that. But like I said, that's why you don't have only one source. Have a variety of sources so that if you hear less than stellar responses from one source, you always have others. Yeah. I would say also, make notes. If you're watching a meeting if you're watching a meeting that is about something that you're concerned about, make notes about what is being said at the meeting, and then write an email to council and be like, hey, here's what and you can write individual counselors. You don't have to write all of council. You can write individual counselors, be like, hey, so I heard you say this. What did you mean? Like, ask for clarification, ask for, and I have to touch on this again because it seems to be an ongoing misinformation. Counselors do not dictate who they don't do or do not respond to in email or in person or otherwise due to whether or not they agree with them. If you respect them, if you approach them respectfully, you get the same in return. And again, I'm going to reiterate, don't depend on social media for interactions with city councilors or city staff even, or anybody for that matter. A lot of councilors don't spend too much time on social media. They maybe spend 20 minutes a day, maybe. Just quick checking. But yeah, definitely always fact check and always confirm and always clarify. And if you see somebody not doing that, try and encourage them to do the same. Because that will be beneficial to everybody at the end of it. Because I think even especially in London, we've seen enough of the small vocal minority who don't actually know anything about what they're talking about. And a lot of times, sometimes some city staff or some, not city staff, some city councilors feed into some of the misinformation and disinformation and misunderstanding and misinterpretations, and then they, even unintentionally add to it, which makes it worse. Especially if that misinformation or something is at the expense of a statement made by another counselor that a group of people or whomever misinterpreted or misunderstood and spread misinformation as a result, doesn't help. Again, we all need to do better on this. Like, city councilors need to stop resorting to social media to take pot shots at each other. Like, it's exhausting. And I mean all city councilors. And I'm going to warn you guys, some city councilors may not respond to you at all. Like, there's how many people in London and how many people in each ward? That's a lot of people to respond to. I would encourage following up every couple days and just being like, hey, have you had a chance to, just respect, right? And this applies whether they agree with you or not on things, or whether you agree with them on something or a decision they're making or not. Keep following up, keep watching, keep tabs, like bookmark the agendas and minutes page on City of London, because that updates often with like revised agendas, added agendas, etc. Watch the live streams. Make notes just watching the live streams. And one thing about live streams is you can rewind if you miss something, or you can rewatch it later, or even if you're in person for the meeting, you can go back and rewatch that meeting 90% of the time. Sometimes they have technical issues, but not often. Just consider the source, fact check, go to all possible sources, not just the ones that are available to you. Seek out any and all sources, and try not to knee-jerk react to things on social media. Don't go on smear campaigns against anything that you haven't already fact-checked. And 9 times out of 10, if you fact-checked everything and had the proper conversations that you need in order to get your concerns and questions addressed, you won't need to resort to social media because you already have that. And again, if you see people doing that, just be like, hey, have you considered reaching out to them, following up with them? And unfortunately, there's a small minority of people out there that refuse to do anything other than on social media or to the media. Like, I've had face-to-face conversations with counselors that I've never seen eye to eye with. And yeah, if you're trying to get a hold of a city councilor on social media and they're not responding to you, try other means. You can contact the office. Most of them have staff, I think. Most of them have, If anything, walk into City Hall, walk up to the city councilor's office. There's usually a receptionist. Try and make a meeting with one-on-one with counselors or the mayor. Mayor's office, same thing. Attend meetings, watch meetings. There's so many more effective ways than what we see. And especially with the climate politically across the world right now, social media is not a good avenue for it. which is really unfortunate because social media should be a good, and it can be good in some instances, but overwhelmingly and increasingly, it's becoming the opposite. So we need to find other ways and more meaningful and productive and positive ways to go about promoting change rather than contributing to the toxic negativity and the toxic destruction that we see on social media on a regular daily basis. Now, I'm going to say that if you're going to attend meetings, show up early. I usually show up half an hour to 15 minutes early, just because you never know how busy it's going to be. Especially meetings like today, it's going to be probably standing room only. We'll probably have to open up a few extra rooms, like the conference rooms or whatever. But yeah, show up early. And again, be very weary of the fact that there's usually media at meetings. So if you show up and there's a rally going on and you don't understand what the rally is about, and you haven't fact checked the rally itself, just because it's a cause you believe in or want to see changes to, doesn't mean that you should be joining every rally that comes around. Because unfortunately, some rallies are actually not out of genuine good intentions. Some of them are just out of one person's desire to be heard and one person's ego needing to be stroked. Sorry, I hate to be blunt, but I've literally seen that more often than not. There's been a lot of good rallies that I've attended, but I've also attended a lot of rallies that were quite the opposite. Like I said, just fact check everything. And if you're going to attend a rally and you don't want to be on camera, or you don't want footage of you taken, just make that clear to people. Like, I don't wish to be filmed. Is there some place I could stand where I'm not going to be on film? Sometimes that means you may have to stand off to the side of the actual rally, or you may have to just not attend it at all because they can't always guarantee that you're not going to end up on film. And especially when some of these rallies are held by certain groups that have some views that aren't all fact-checked, they take that footage and put it on social media, which means if you appear in that footage, that means you're somehow associated with them. And yeah, trust me, I've seen far too many times when people that really didn't want to be associated with the actual intentions of the group behind the rally they attended ended up being associated with it, and that doesn't end well for anybody. And I say the same thing about interacting and engaging with some of the people that you see embarking on smear campaigns or embarking on campaigns or starting pages where they want engagement and want and they want to push for greater this, that, or the other, and yet they claim that, and then with their actions they prove the opposite. Yeah, be very skeptical. I like to say optimistically pessimistic, and productively skeptical. Like I said, give everybody equal opportunity, but also be very, very cautious and fact check everything. Because misinformation is a freaking virus nowadays, it seems like, and it's unfortunate, but it's true. But anyways, I think I've dragged on enough. If you guys have any questions, I've been around City Hall meetings for better part of the past 15 plus years, either in person or otherwise. So any questions you guys have, if you guys are new to the space, new to the community involvement thing, I don't like the term advocate. I really don't. I used to, claim to be an advocate. The negative connotation of the word advocate means you're speaking for a group of people. And 9 times out of 10, you're only speaking for your own experience. So to say you're an advocate for something has a negative connotation that some people might interpret that you're speaking for an entire group of people or a collective, whereas you're just speaking for your own experience or your own perspective. I like to use the term engaged community member, because that allows you the freedom to kind of be impartial, and unbiased. And it's very important to foster a discourse, that is respectful while also welcoming of all perspectives. Because it's not up to anybody to decide whose voice does and doesn't matter, or does and does not have a place in the conversation. Because that's the kind of stuff that starts wars. Like, it's the kind of stuff that we see enough of, why that's a bad thing going on in the world today. I don't like bullies. I don't like people that try and throw their weight around. I try not to even imply that I'm doing that. I sometimes comes off as a know-it-all. I'm going to acknowledge that. I don't mean to. And anybody that points that out to me, I apologize. I like to say that I don't know more or better. I know different. And that's very important, because you can say you know different, and that leaves it open, because that means you could still learn, and that doesn't mean you're an expert, because you're always learning. Nobody's an expert on anything, everybody's always learning. Even the people with experience in things are always still learning. And again, there's a difference between being an expert and having lived experience, and it's important that all voices, because of that, are involved in the conversation, and not one overwhelming the other, or overtaking the conversation, or overwhelmingly controlling the conversation, or dictating the conversation, or dictating the solutions, or dictating this, that, and the other. We all need to be part of the conversation. Even if we disagree, even if we have different perspectives, different narratives, different this, that, and the other, we all need to be part of this. And in order to have that happen, we need to have respect, first and foremost. Integrity is important as well. Intelligence helps, but always learning helps your intelligence. But yeah, so anything you guys need to know, anything you guys have questions about, throw them down in the comments. Happy to have a conversation. It's the whole point of this series that I started, is to have a conversation. I don't expect to be the expert on anything, because I'm not. Lord knows I'm not. I'm still learning. I've made mistakes myself. I'm not perfect. Still got a lot of work to do. But I want to use what experiences and knowledge I do have to help contribute positively to the conversation and move towards progress rather than the opposite. I've been in the place where I've done the opposite and it's not worked out. So past few years, I've really tried to revisit and re-engage with people and reevaluate how I approach and engage with people. And I still struggle with it sometimes, but I just keep trying, you know? Yeah, I get to my limits sometimes when people are like being overly disrespectful, and there's just like, but I'm still able to be, blunt, but still respectful, But yeah, so if you guys have any questions about, how to be better community involved, who to talk to, etc., let me know down below in the comments. That's it for now. I'll probably do another episode in another couple days. there's a lot of episodes to come, so stay tuned. But for now,